So you're randomly partnered with someone, okay? He's at his machine, you're at your machine, you're playing this game. And you're given a secret word called cone, okay? The partner, the person you're playing with, he doesn't know it is cone, but he has to guess that it is cone based on what you type in here, okay? So the clues that you give are things like it has blank. So you type in what you can there. It looks like about the same size as, it is related to, it is a kind of. So these are all clues that you give, and the person at the other end, he has to guess what the secret word is based on the clues that you give, okay? So once he guesses it, well, the things that you entered here are a valuable source of information now, right? So this is like, I could come up with only one thing for cone. I mean, there are certain things that you're not supposed to, they're called taboo words that you're not supposed to type in. So I cannot say that cone, it looks like cone, because that would like give away the word. Couldn't figure out what else to fill in here. But I think you can, with a little imagination, you can figure out that filling in these blanks and having the other person there guess what this word is, it's a valuable way of learning about properties of things, right? So this is one game, and there are a bunch of other games at this website too. So this is one style of doing things. So it's harvesting lots of things. By the way, Luis van Ahn is the guy behind CAPTCHA. So you guys know about CAPTCHA, right? So these, websites where you require a login or things like that, they don't want spammers to continuously come and type in names and things. So they have this CAPTCHA there where you have to, it's actually an image and you have to say what that image contains, right? The letters or the numbers that are there. So Luis van Ahn actually used that idea to translate, or rather transcribe, a whole bunch of digitally scanned books. So that's a piece of trivia. That's cool. Okay, so the other type of human computing sweatshop technique is, there are communities like from Freebase. So there is a website called freebase.com where people who have similar interests, they kind of get together and build an information base. So it could be about some really obscure kind of thing like, I don't know, hip hop music in the 1960s in California, something like that. Maybe there are some people who are like really interested in that topic and they all enthusiastic and they want to collect all sorts of information. They build communities. So again, you can visit freebase.com. There is a lot of data there as well, also downloadable. Okay, so basically what I did right now is to cover 3 different ways in which you can build a knowledge base, right? But there are a whole bunch of things that I did not talk about. And what I did was give you a very intuitive idea of how these things work. But don't get fooled. There is a lot of hard science behind it, especially from machine learning techniques. They're all underneath. They're very solid. But the intuition is as simple as this. The idea is as simple as this. But to make it work, you need machinery. Okay? A whole bunch of things that I didn't talk about and that I won't talk about. One is scalability, of course. I use the term scalability in terms of, actually I think I used it in the sense of recall. We want recall, we want all relationships, we want all entities, things like that. But scalability here, I'm talking about simply the volume of data that's out there, right? So billions and billions of pages are out there of data. So how do you harvest? And harvesting, again, it's one thing to just extract triples, but I just pointed out, like in Reverb, you have additional things that you need to do. You need canonicalization, for example. You need entity resolution. All of these things, they're really tough things to do, hard things to do. And even if you can do them, they're expensive in terms of computation time. They could turn out to be expensive. Okay, so smart techniques to do this, research area right there. So another thing I didn't talk about is what is the confidence that you have in your extraction? How do you know that something is true, right? If you really want to be philosophical, right? So this is all not true. I mean, we are all living in the dream world, right? It's all Maya. We have to be a little bit more practical than that. So Where did you get your information from? So the extraction itself can be really easy. You could have some weird website which says Elvis Presley is still living in his house in the US. Sure, it's a really simple sentence. You extract the triple. But can you really trust the source, right? I don't know. I mean, and what if there are multiple sources that you extract this information from? And what if they're conflicting, right? So usually, my daughter, she goes to school now. I teach her lots of things because, I want her to grow up fast. I say, oh, addition. So you keep this number in your mind and this in your hand and you count. And she's like really happy she learned this new technique. But then she goes to school. And then her teacher says, you keep that other number in your mind and this in the hand. And immediately like, what, you're totally wrong. My teacher said this. I don't believe anything you say. So that's what she says. So, whatever comes from her teacher, that is trusted. Yeah, I guess many of you would be like that too, right? Even at this age, I don't think you really trust exactly what your parents say. It's like if it comes, the trusted sources are your peers, right? You trust someone, and if that someone says this is to be trusted, then you trust it. So it's kind of the same thing here. If a trusted source says that this extraction is true, then you trust it. But what is a trusted source? Well, a trusted source is something that other trusted sources trust. Okay, yeah. So try parsing that sentence right there. So yeah, there is an issue of what can and cannot be trusted, and what happens with conflicting information. How do you even deal with it? So this goes into this whole thing about reasoning about facts, and which is a really big research issue right now. I mean, you have extracting these triples is just the basic thing, just the beginning, right? So you want to make it consistent, you want to make it clean, you want to make it trustworthy, right? Otherwise there's no use. I mean, you get fed with junk just like you do now. So reasoning about facts, including conflicting facts, missing facts, at least know that this particular fact is missing, even that, that's important. And what I've been talking about so far still deals with just text. There's a whole bunch of other kinds of information out there which I didn't even touch. So what if in your knowledge base, in addition to text, you wanted a photo of every person that's there, right? So you have Indira Gandhi in your knowledge base, and you want to say, this is a photo of Indira Gandhi. You want to extract it automatically from the web. How do you do it? It's an image. Yeah, so now you go about saying things like, okay, let me look at the text surrounding the image, and there is Indira Gandhi, which is very close to it, so I kind of assume that this is the image for Indira Gandhi. And there are so many images to choose from, right? Maybe you store them all, maybe you don't. Some of them are right, some of them are wrong. So going beyond text and going beyond English, right? So it's the conceit that, yeah, everybody in the world speaks English, but that's not the case, not everyone at least. And I don't think English is the most spoken language either, right? I think it may be Chinese. I may be wrong. So what about all these other languages? What about knowledge bases there? What about parsing? Same kind of techniques we cannot just blindly apply to some other language, right? Including our Indian languages. So our languages are agglutinous languages. We kind of put words together to make bigger words. So how do you parse it? You cannot parse it the way you parse English. By the way, there are special parsers for Indian languages, but using them and trying to put them in these crisp formats, how do you do it? So that's a research issue there as well. Okay. So what I want to do now, I talked in general about different techniques to do information extraction. So building a knowledge base is all about putting a bunch of different techniques together. And I want to talk about one particular knowledge base that I recently worked on. It's called opinionated. It's an opinion base, so it's a knowledge base of opinions. Okay, so this is a very specific kind of knowledge base where we want to store information about opinions that people have about topics. So the idea was this: politicians have opinions, or at least they pretend they do, and the opinion can change all the time depending on who their audience is, maybe even what the time of day is, and usually, they even contradict themselves from one sentence to the next, right? So no wonder we have a hard time remembering these things, right? So what would be really cool is if we had an opinion base which would store these opinions, okay? So some of the recent things that were big news in India, right? So Ramdev's campaign against black money, Hazare and the Lokpal bill, these are issues which are very complex because they have so many different kinds of people involved, so many different kinds of events, and so many different facets to them. So it's not just about the Lokpal bill, it's also about him forming a political party. He has a rivalry with maybe Kejriwal, and what's his relationship with the Congress party, with the BJP. So lots of different kinds of things that are happening here, right? And lots of opinions flying around. So what we would ideally want is an opinion base which somehow looks like this, okay? So again, there are 3 columns here. This is RDF again. So augmented by one extra column here. So instead of calling them subject, predicate, and object, I just call them entity, polarity, and topic, which are basically the same things if you think about it, right? So it says Dalai Lama supports Anna's anti-corruption movement, BJP supports it, Lalu Yadav opposes it, don't know why, but he did, and Anna Hazare opposes FDI in retail. And each of these has a context or where exactly we extracted this opinion from. So one thing I want to point out is that we are not looking at issues of correctness again. I mean, I made this statement, how do you trust a source? Well, we don't even get into that. Just have a bunch of newspaper reports, and we want to extract all opinions from them, even if they're conflicting, okay? So tomorrow if Lalu Yadav says he actually supported the anti-corruption movement, that would also be extracted. But at least we know that he flip-flopped, yeah. So he flip-flopped because there are two different opinions on the same topic by the same person. So that's a flip-flop, okay? So another example, but this time at the global level. So the recent events in Libya, maybe not so recent now. At the time I made the slides, they were recent. So there are all kinds of things, whether the US should get involved in Libya at all, whether there should be a no-fly zone, things like that. So there are a bunch of stakeholders like Barack Obama, the UN Security Council, there is support and opposition for all kinds of different things. So you have an opinion base, you at least know where people stand, okay? So what you end up with is a network of opinions like this. So you have stakeholders at the bottom here. So these are entities, and then there are facets, right? So there is FDI in retail, no-fly zone, Gaddafi's response to civil war. These are different facets of a controversial topic. And then you have the topic hierarchy. So this was our aim. So to kind of organize these various facets into a hierarchy. So you have Gaddafi's response to the civil war is part of the war crimes in Libya, okay? And then both the war crimes in Libya as well as the no-fly zone, they all have to do with the Libyan civil war of 2011. And this is a subtopic of illegal immigration. So why do you think that particular, why would that be? Illegal immigration has a subtopic, Libyan civil war. It's because there are a lot of people fleeing the civil war and they crossed over to the other countries. I mean, obviously they didn't wait for a visa, right? So illegal immigration, some countries handled it, some couldn't. So part of a broader discussion. Okay, quiz time. Oh, that was too easy. Because he doesn't have his cap, I thought it might be difficult, huh? Actually, yeah, it is Hamid Karzai. So what does he have to do with what I'm talking about? Well, I use him in the next example, so that's why I had this picture. But I think that was too easy, but I have some really tough ones coming on later. Okay, so opinionated basically works in 4 phases. So I don't want to get into too many details of it, but I do want to illustrate the fact that there are many different kinds of techniques at work, and this is what I want you to take away from this. Okay? It's one thing to say, okay, I have this particular relation that I want to extract, or let me do something like what Reverb does and extract everything. So it's one thing to say that and build a knowledge base, but this is a very focused kind of application that I'm talking about. So I want to extract opinions, and I want to build that hierarchy. Okay? So a bunch of different techniques coming together to do this. So first of all, the first step is to find out what are some candidate opinions, right? So we are very sure that there are only two relationships that we want to extract here. One is supports, and the other is opposes. That we are very sure of. There are only two relationships that we want. So let's go around the web and try to find out candidates, candidate sentences which could possibly contain an opinion, right? So for example, it says Afghan president says he supports talks with the Taliban. Okay? So that's a candidate sentence right there. And I'll tell you how we got it. I mean, it should be obvious because there is something highlighted here. He supports. So you query the web with this phrase, he supports, and then just about every sentence which contains he supports is a candidate sentence from which you can potentially extract an opinion. Okay? So once you have this candidate sentence, what you want to do is extract the entity which holds the opinion and the facet on which the opinion is held, right? So you want to say something like the entity which holds the opinion is Afghan president, and the facet is talks with Taliban. So how do you do this? Again, going back to the parsers that I talked about, right? So part of speech tagging, maybe dependency parsing is what is required here. So you want to identify like the subject of the sentence and the object of the sentence. Okay? Subject and object of the sentence are the key. And the verb, you already know what the relationship is because you started with the phrase he supports. So obviously this is going to be a supporting relationship. Not always, but I'll come to that later. And so you want to identify the entity which holds the relationship and the facet. So you do it using a parser again. And a lot of heuristics, I'll come to that. So now that we have these two, one of the requirements that I said is to have them in canonical form, right? So what I want is, I want to identify the fact that Afghan president is actually Hamid Karzai, right? So that's the canonical form. So if I find Afghan president, I want to map it to Hamid Karzai. If I find Karzai, I want to map it to Hamid Karzai. So because that's the canonical form, and my knowledge base has canonical forms. And the thing is, I want to do the same thing with the facet, right? Talks with Taliban. There are so many different ways of expressing this, talks with Taliban. It could be Taliban talks, negotiations with Taliban. You know, there are different ways of expressing this. And I want to canonicalize it. So, and I want to say Taliban talks means Taliban negotiations. Talks with Taliban also means Taliban negotiations. So I want to somehow canonicalize these things. And then finally, I want to have this topic hierarchy, where in the bottom, I have Taliban negotiations and drone strikes, which are part of the Afghanistan war. And then there are suicide bombings, which are part of the Iraq war, both of them part of the war on terror. So that's the kind of hierarchy that I want to build. Okay? So let's talk about how to do this. So the first step is to acquire snippets. So what we did actually is to identify newspaper websites. And there is a very specific reason why newspapers. Can you say why? Because opinions, they're everywhere, right? It could be on blogs, it could be comments, it could be anywhere. But we specifically chose newspapers for a reason. Pardon? No, we don't bother with dates. It's very nicely written English. That was our hypothesis. It's actually true. In the beginning, we wanted to search these snippets for the entire web, you know. And then we tried that, and we found these horrendous sentences. No one can parse them, not even human beings can understand them. So we thought, okay, I think we realized our limitation and just stick with newspapers, and that too, just a few of them, okay? And we had some seed phrases as queries. So as I mentioned, so a sentence which contains this relationship likely has these kinds of patterns in them, okay? And especially he voted for, he voted against. We were interested in political controversies. So voted for, voted against, probably some action happening in the parliament. So supports FDI in retail. He voted for the bill which enabled FDI in retail, things like that, right? And these are just 4 examples. We had past tense, present tense, gender-based, everything. So maybe about 8 to 10 such seed phrases as queries, and we got a bunch of snippets. So here's an example of that. Okay, so so what I want to point out is that there are some really complicated sentences here. Okay, so I'll just give you a minute to read it, and then I'll show you something which is not funny at all, which is the parsing of these sentences and what happened then. So this was the easy part. Acquiring these snippets was the easy part. Just fire the query, you get a bunch of sentences. And then the facet extraction and the entity extraction, that was quite a painful thing, right? So we did use dependency parsing, and we tried to look for the subject and object of a sentence. But as I mentioned many times before, these sentences are complicated. Even if we get them from these newspapers, it's still tough. So we thought parsing is going to be easy because we had these seed phrases and we know that this sentence contains an opinion, blah, blah, blah. Not easy at all, and we ended up using a lot of heuristics. There's an example. So this is probably the only sentence for which we correctly identified the entity and the facet. Okay? So others. So Robert Gates supports charge of defending the country. So that, I mean, even reading it, that just doesn't make sense at all. Not to mention the fact that it's completely incorrect for this sentence. Okay? The fact is the subject was identified correctly here. The entity was identified correctly, but not the topic, not the facet. Another example here is that Prime Minister David Cameron met Mr. Gates in Downing Street on Monday and restated his support for American strategy in Afghanistan. So we're totally confused as to who exactly had this opinion. Okay? So it was supposed to be David Cameron, and actually this is kind of our fault because there are like 2 entities there. Parser is going to identify the 2 entities, leave it at that, and now we have to use heuristics to say which of these entities actually holds the opinion. And we said whichever entity is close to the phrase, the seed phrase, that's the person who holds the opinion. So these are hand-picked examples to show you where things go wrong, but there are a lot of cases where things go right. In fact, at the end of this whole process, we had something like 70% accuracy in the opinions that we extracted. Okay? Okay, so once you have topics and entities, what you would like to do is canonicalize them. So you have things like Gaddafi, Qaddafi, Obama, US President. You want things which are the same to have the same canonical name. And same thing with raw facets as well. So at least for the names part, it's a little bit easier because we had this knowledge base, Yago, as I mentioned before. So Yago has this means relation, right? So I showed you an example of the Wikipedia page where, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan is also known as all these other things, right? So that information is harvested, right? And also Wikipedia has this redirects facility. I'm sure you would have come across this. So if you type Gandhi, it just immediately takes you to Mahatma Gandhi's page, and there is a small thing just underneath the title which says redirected from Gandhi. And if you click on that Gandhi there, it shows you all the other interpretations of Gandhi. So Gandhi could refer to all these different people. Okay? So there is this means relation in Yago already, and luckily for us, there is already a something called a preferred meaning. So kind of counting the number of times this particular term was used to navigate to the page of Barack Obama. Okay, so if most people type in Obama and navigate to Barack Obama instead of Michelle Obama, then Barack Obama is the preferred meaning, and we just took it as is. And of course, we were wrong some of the time, but quite a lot of the time we were fine with this kind of canonicalization. Okay, so the tough part, of course, is not really the names, it's the facets. And here is where some kind of, techniques need to come together to do this properly. Okay, so what we have are resources such as Wikipedia. Again, there's a very well structured resource. And looking at Wikipedia categories and Wikipedia titles, these are all candidates for canonical forms. So if you look at Wikipedia, you have things like a page for Iran's nuclear program. There would be a page for this. And Iran's nuclear program, that phrase is a very good canonical facet, right? The nuclear program by Iran. Iran is speeding up its nuclear facilities. So all these things, they're expressed in a different way, but they all refer to Iran's nuclear program. So looking at Wikipedia titles and the categories and so on, these are all candidates for canonicalizing these surface forms that you have. The only problem, of course, is that Wikipedia topics, they're not always controversial, and we were specifically looking for politically controversial topics, right? So we had this other resource called Debatepedia, and Debatepedia is very much similar to the structure of Wikipedia in the sense that there are a bunch of different topics, but they're all controversial topics, and they have debates on these topics, right? So you could take a controversy like Iran's nuclear program, and there would be support for it, a bunch of things which support for it and oppose for it. So there will be a bunch of text. And just like Wikipedia, you have categories at the bottom. So Debatepedia titles and categories are also candidates for canonicalization of facets. So the approach that we took, and we did do a lot of different, these short experiments to determine that this was the best way to go. So map the raw facets that we have to something in Debatepedia, and from Debatepedia we take it to Wikipedia. Okay, simply because Wikipedia has a lot more coverage than Debatepedia has. Okay, so I see that I have like 1.5 minutes in this session. So what I'll do is just probably not explain the details in too much of detail. Okay, so these are Debatepedia articles that we are talking about. So there is a topic, and there are a bunch of debates, and there are a bunch of categories. Okay, so for each topic we have its own little mini corpus of documents with these debates. Don't worry about this. I will talk about this a bit later. What you should understand is that is this part here. So this basically shows the distribution of words in this corpus. Distribution of words in this corpus. Okay, so that's called a language model. I think you would have come across this in one of the previous lectures here. So we are building language models for each of these topics. Okay, so that's the first step. And then what we do is look at our raw facet F. So F is the facet for which we want to find this canonical name. Okay. So, okay, it's probably difficult to explain this without explaining what language models are. But think of this as a way of, a keyword search that you're doing on a corpus. Okay, F is your keyword, and this huge document or the set of documents for a given topic, that's one document, and you have many such documents. So you're querying with this facet against this corpus, and the top results provide you with candidates for the canonical name. Okay, I think that makes better sense. So it's like F is your query on this corpus, and you get top 10 results, top 10 matches. Okay. So then we have Debatepedia to Wikipedia, and the big advantage of Wikipedia is not just that it has better recall, but it also has this category system which provides us with a ready-made hierarchy. Okay, So how do we do this? Again, I'm not going to talk in too much of detail of exactly what happens, but depending on the candidates that you had from Wikipedia, you're going to use those candidate categories as queries now and get a bunch of Wikipedia articles as results. And the title and categories of these Wikipedia articles are now in your candidate category. Okay? Are now in the set of your candidate categories. So all we are doing here is we started with a raw facet, and we want to find a canonical name for this facet, and we want to identify a bunch of candidates which could do this. So we are just using this facet to query Debatepedia first, collecting a bunch of candidates there, and then using these candidates to query Wikipedia and getting a bunch of candidates there. So we have a whole bunch of candidates now. Okay? Now we need to pick one to say that this is the canonical name. So the way we do that is we construct a graph of these candidates. So these are all categories here. Okay, these are all categories. These are all candidate categories.